Yeah, Joe, what are we going to do for this project? I mean, I like studying history, especially the wars, but we haven't learned about World War I since grade 8. I wish I paid more attention in class. And now the university wants us to do a report on this? This sucks.
Jacob, relax. I see where you're coming from, I really do. 6 years is a long time. It's enough to forget quite a bit. But we can't let that stop us.
Easy for you to say. You're always Mr. Common Logic. We can't all be that way, Joe. So, where do you think we should start?
You know, my mom has a shelf full of old books. Maybe we can see what she has there.
Sounds like a plan.
Alright, let's see what we have here. Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, Three Musketeers, Les Miserables. Not seeing anything on World War I. But you know, interesting fact about these shelves, they're nearly 100 years old. My great-grandfather bought them back in 1918.
Same great-grandfather that fought in mine in World War I?
Yeah.
Do you know any more about him?
Not much more than what you just said. I mean, he was my great-grandfather, obviously. He fought in World War I with his best friend, which was your great-grandfather. But I don't really know much more than that about him.
If only we knew more.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah, what is it, Jake?
What's that in there?
Where?
In there.
It's a hidden compartment.
We'll see what's in it. Whoa, what is it?
It's a book.
I know it's a book. What's inside it?
I don't know. Let's go to the kitchen and check it out.
All right.
Hey, it's my great-grandfather's journal.
Well, let's read it then. What are we waiting for?
Wow, the first entry is August 1914, right when World War I started.
Wow.
Let's see what it says.
War breaks out in Europe. The assassination of the would-be Emperor of Austria. The arms race in Europe has been like a powder keg waiting to explode. The Serbian terrorist group Black Hand has just assassinated the Archduke Franz Ferdinand. The German quest for more colonies has made them an enemy of the state. My devoted Englishmen, join your country in the fight for freedom. We are currently in negotiations to get other countries to join our casualties are running high from both sides, yet the Americans still remain neutral. The triple entity of Great Britain, France, and Russia remains united in face of this danger. After declaring war on Serbia, the Russians declared war on Austria. France was ready to back them up. Fearing for their safety as the neighboring countries declared war, Germany declared war on France and Russia and attacked them by way of Belgium. England's alliance with Belgium has automatically made them an enemy of the German Empire. My fellow Canadians, with Britain now at war, it's our duty to aid them. Join. Everybody has to do their bit.
This message goes to all able-bodied young men that want to aid. Join. Everybody has to do their bit. So, John, what do you think of this?
I say we enlist. We go overseas, we fight for our king in Canada, and who knows, we will get a nice adventure out of it.
James?
I agree with John.
So be it then. We shall enlist, as John said, for the king, for Canada, and for an adventure.
Name?
Alex Palmeran.
Frenchman. Do France proud, lad.
Yes, sir.
Next. Name? James Austin Warren. Brothers, eh? Yep. Move along. Move along, that's it? That's all I get, a move along?
James, get over here.
Next. Name?
John Dante Miller.
Move along.
So, James, John, what regiments were you assigned to?
3rd Battalion Infantry of the Toronto Regiment.
Same.
Well, that's great. We're all going to be together, assuming we're in the same squadron.
I believe we are.
Amazing. Us three together are a force to be reckoned with.
Yes, we are.
April 22nd, 1915. Today was the day we got to finally participate in the war for real. Not to say we haven't been involved in small skirmishes, but on those occasions we didn't even get to stay in the trenches. But today, our squadron arrived near the small Belgian town of Ypres. I have to say, war isn't what I thought it would be. The trenches are probably the most uncomfortable place I've ever been in my life. We have to sleep in the trenches standing up, or if we're lucky, lean on the sandbags. In here, it's very wet, dirty, and unsanitary. I've heard from soldiers who have been through this before that disease and sickness have been known to spread fast here. I even saw some soldiers get shell shock. It was a sad sight.
We had just sat down to rest after a hard day's work. Today, I had killed a man that was coming a little close from no man's land. Now I don't believe war's fun like we expected it to be. These thoughts of shame and guilt were going through my mind when John ran up to me and said,
Hey Alex, Commander wants us out on watch duty. That sly devil brother of yours got his way out of this one. He gets to rest tonight.
John, let him rest. I don't mind.
Hey Alex, you see that up there?
What, you mean that cloud of dust coming at us?
Yeah, doesn't that look a little odd to you?
Well, now that you mention it, it does. I'm getting a bad feeling about this. We should go tell the commander.
Yeah.
We hopped down from the lookout post, and some men went up to replace our posts. When we went to see the commander, suddenly, we'd heard screams of agony. And the commander had yelled out, "Everyone, get down, and cover your face with a wet rag." So John and I got down. Soon after, we found out that we were being assaulted by a deadly substance called poison gas. John suddenly yelled out,
Woodward James!
Well, it may have been against orders. We got up and ran to where James was sleeping. We got down and covered his mouth and nose with a rag. Then we dragged him down to the ground with us. After this night, I was scared to imagine what the remainder of the war should entail.
Attack!
Our squadron has been relocated to fight in France, in a place called Somme. The German army was holding up at Beaumont-Hamel. By the time our troops reached the trenches, most of us were killed by the machine guns that the Germans had to defend themselves. I have never seen more bloodshed at a single time. We have been fighting for months. The casualties are high here, but I believe that the tide of the battle was turned when the British introduced their new invention they call a tank. Us Canadians have been fighting so valiantly, I've heard many people call us the Stormtroops. The cost of this battle has been so high that even with all of this, I can hardly call this a victory for either side, and I'm sure the others will agree with me. Our infantry had gotten reports that over on Vimy Ridge, the Germans were taking the high ground and putting their bases right into the hills. Both the British and the French military tried, but they couldn't defeat the Germans. Our Canadian military had been planning this for a while now. Today was the day that Canadian troops all grouped together for a surprise assault on Vimy Ridge. In a matter of hours, we had fought our way up the hill. The Germans had no idea what hit them. So far, this has been Canada's crowning achievement in the war. Now nobody can doubt that the Canadians are a force to be reckoned with. At certain times throughout the war, I received letters from my cousin keeping me updated on how life was going on in Canada. One such was as follows. Dear Alex, I can't possibly imagine what war must be like, but all of our friends back in Toronto are supporting you. I just wanted to give you an indication of how life is here. As you no doubt know, so many of us have been growing food and cutting back on our own portions so we could send more to the soldiers. There are so many farmers fighting that we've allowed the students to help with the farming. The women gather regularly to organize fundraisers, roll bandages, and get parcels prepared for the soldiers. The communities even hold events so they can raise money to send you soap, paper, pencils, and other kinds of candy to the soldiers. Since so many of the men are away, the women have had to take over the jobs. This helped with the women's rights movement. We're about to convince the government to let us vote in federal elections. Send my regards to James and John. I was a little surprised about the women's movement and the progress they made, yet I suppose, looking back, this was becoming inevitable. In other news, I've heard that the Americans have finally had enough of the Germans sinking their freight liners and are finally ready to join the Allied forces. The British are finally traveling in convoys to protect their ships from the German submarines too. Canadians are also doing their part in the Royal Navy.
We built numerous ships for Britain, and even given them sailors. The last couple months have been turning the war in favor of the Allies. Austria, Hungary, Turkey, and most of Germany's allies are all close to the point of surrender. With the bulk of the American army coming in, Germany's days are numbered. Air warfare has taken a huge toll on the German side. While they may have had their Zeppelin and Fokker fighting planes, Britain had many Canadian pilots, as Canada doesn't have their own air force, and they also had the Canadian Air Squadron Black Flight on their side. One Canadian pilot by the name of Roy Brown even succeeded in shooting down the notorious German pilot Manfred von Richthofen, better known as the Red Baron. Currently, I'm on a secret mission for the Canadian Army. My platoon was one of the 5 ordered to get into Germany and stage a base in a trench picked up by our spies. We were promised that even though we were few in number, they would get reinforcements to break the German border and set up camp in the trench we are to take. We had to fight our way through thick forests, and we encountered German resistance.
Whoa!
Get up, soldier! Let's go.
Okay, the Germans are over there. The plan is we're gonna get through the forest, and we're gonna storm the barricades. We'll throw the grenades in the trenches, and then we'll take them over.
May God help us.
By the time we stormed the trench, the casualties we suffered to get there, plus actually taking over the trench, amounted to the death of around 3 platoons. That means there's little more than 100 of us to hold this base until reinforcements come in a few days. It's been a rough couple of months. The reinforcements that were supposed to get into Germany never came. We're nearly out of food, and we're surrounded on all sides by enemy soldiers. There are only 31 of us left, including James, John, and myself. The others either died from sickness or from defending the barricades from enemy assaults. We have no idea how the war is progressing outside Germany, but by this point we believe ourselves to be on our own. If the Allies were coming, they would have come by now, is what most of the men think, but I believe that they've just been delayed. Even so, we can't hold out much longer.
Men, it is clear the Allies aren't coming, or they have been delayed. Either way, no matter how painful it is for us to admit, we won't hold out more than a few days. We're nearly out of ammunition and food. We're surrounded, and we know for sure that they're waiting for us just the very least, a mere kilometer from the barracks. It seems pretty clear that we aren't going to make it. But can we have our country thinking when we die cowards? No. I say we die like men. We can jump these barricades and face them. Because before God, I swear that if we're going down, we're not going down without a fight. So who's with me?
I am John.
So a lot.
As we walked for the barricades, guns in hand and grenades at the standby, an amazing thing happened. One by one, our comrades came up beside us and waited for us to give the final order. I turned to John and James and said to them with a handshake,
Goodbye, friend. Goodbye, brother. A man can never hope to have a good friend as much as you.
Likewise, Alex.
See you on the other side.
Ready? Charge!
and so we jumped the barricades. It all happened so fast. We ran out, and the firing started at us. We returned the fire and started to throw our grenades. I saw men I've known since the start of the war fall in battle. Suddenly, I saw James get shot. I screamed out in anger and shot his killer. I covered John while he tried to drag James's body back to the barricades. Soon after we got back, John got shot in the arm. There were perhaps 8 of us left, when something amazing happened. Suddenly, surrounding the Germans were hundreds of soldiers wearing Allied uniforms. We would find out later that the Allied troops had taken over Berlin, and they had stopped fighting at 11 a.m. Finally, the war was over. For our service to our country in the trenches these last few months, the 8 survivors, including John and I, were awarded the Victoria Cross of Honor. Later, at James's funeral, I was willing to discuss anything at that moment except James. So then John and I just talked about the effects of the war on Canada.
Man, I don't know if those men in veteran hospitals will ever be the same again.
John, of course they won't. All those men were damaged by the war, physically or mentally. They'll never be the same again.
Talk about Quebec being angry because the English Canadians say that they sent in the least volunteers to fight.
Also, our national debt skipped from 463 million to 2.46 billion.
Oh. But not all the effects weren't totally bad. Agriculture and industry businesses have largely increased. And after our role in the war, as a nation, Canada is now respected globally, and even by Britain. Maybe now they'll give us some more independence.
But you know what? I can't shake the thought off my mind. What if a war this size were to ever happen again?
No, I don't think anything like this will ever happen again as large as this.
But you know what? I'm still not sure.
Come on, Alex.
Wow. I had no idea.
Me neither.
Why is it that some of the best stories go unheard?
A real shame. They could have made a movie out of this.
Yeah. Well, you know, what did I tell you? You have nothing to worry about.
Well, you were right. This is more than enough material for our project. Want to get started?
Yep, let's go.